When two officers placed her in handcuffs, they had no idea they would face her again, this time not as a suspect, but as the judge who would decide their fate. It was a bright afternoon in Fort Collins, Colorado. The park was alive with the laughter of children, joggers keeping pace along the trail, and families relaxing under tall oak trees. Among the calm and cheerful chaos, a black woman sat quietly on a bench near the pond, a thick, hardcover book open in her hands. Her name was Camille. She was a respected attorney who rarely found time to rest, and this quiet moment was her small escape from endless courtrooms and deadlines. She was completely absorbed in her book when the sharp squeal of tires interrupted the peace. A police cruiser pulled up to the curb, drawing the attention of a few people nearby. Two officers stepped out, their expressions hard and serious. They scanned the area and locked eyes on Camille, the only person sitting alone. "Ma'am, may we talk to you for a moment?" one officer called out, his tone more suspicious than polite. Camille looked up from her book, her calm expression never fading. "Of course," she replied softly, closing the book and resting it on her lap. The second officer stepped closer, his posture stiff. "We got a call about some suspicious activity around here. Mind telling us what you're doing?" Camille frowned slightly, confused. "Suspicious activity? I'm just sitting here reading." She lifted her book slightly, as if that would prove her innocence. But neither officer looked convinced. "Can we see some ID?" the first one asked, his tone sharp. Camille's pulse quickened, though she kept her composure. "I don't understand," she said carefully. "What's the reason for this?" "It's routine," the second officer replied, though his voice made it sound anything but. A few onlookers began whispering. Some looked curious, others uncomfortable, sensing something wasn't right. With a quiet sigh, Camille reached into her bag and pulled out her wallet. She handed them her driver's license. The officer took it and read aloud with a mocking edge. "Camille Johnson. What's your business here, Miss Johnson?" Camille stayed composed. "I live in this city," she said. "I came here to enjoy the park. Is that against the law?" He handed her ID back, but didn't walk away. Instead, the questions continued. "Do you always carry a book like that?" one officer asked, sneering slightly. "Are you here alone or waiting for someone?" the other added, resting his hand deliberately on his belt. Camille had faced countless confrontations in court, but this was different. This was intimidation. Still, she kept her tone measured. "I'm not answering any more questions unless you tell me what crime I'm being accused of." The first officer scowled. "Don't get smart with us," he snapped. "I know the law," Camille said evenly, "and I'm not breaking it by sitting here." That only made things worse. The officer reached for her arm suddenly. "You're resisting," he barked. "What are you doing?" she exclaimed in shock. People nearby began pulling out their phones to record. "Stop resisting," the officer shouted louder, though she wasn't moving at all. Camille felt the cold metal cuffs snap around her wrists. Her heart pounded, but she stayed calm even as humiliation stung her chest. The officers dragged her toward their cruiser while ignoring the voices of the crowd. As the door closed behind her, she looked out and locked eyes with a young woman holding up her phone. It was a silent plea, "Keep recording." The ride to the station was painfully silent. Camille stared out the window, her reflection overlapping with the passing streets. The cuffs dug into her wrists. She thought about the irony of it all. Years of defending others, now sitting in the back of a patrol car. At the station, the treatment was worse. The booking process was degrading. Fingerprints, mugshots, a holding cell. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, adding to the tension. "Enjoy your stay," one officer said mockingly, as the cell door clanged shut. Camille sat on the cold bench, hands clenched, trying to stay focused. She kept replaying the scene in the park. The truth was simple. Prejudice had turned a peaceful moment into an arrest. Hours passed before someone finally came. A young officer stood outside the cell. "Miss Johnson, you've been charged with resisting arrest and obstructing a peace officer." "On what grounds?" she demanded. "You can discuss that in court," he said flatly, walking away. She exhaled slowly, forcing herself to think like a lawyer again. The charges were weak, she knew it, but this wasn't going to be an easy fight. When she was finally released on bail, her friend Marissa was waiting outside. "Camille!" Marissa rushed to her, eyes wide with worry. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," she said, though she didn't feel it. As they drove away, silence filled the car until Camille spoke. "I'm not letting this slide," she said quietly. "What are you thinking?" Marissa asked. "I'm tired of this happening," Camille replied. "I have the tools, the knowledge, and the voice, and I'm going to use them." That night, Camille sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by open files and notes. She began drafting a civil rights lawsuit against the officers and the department. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from determination. In the following days, the video from the park went viral. The young woman's footage had spread across social media, and the community began to rally behind Camille. Messages poured in, stories from people who had experienced the same kind of injustice. Her law firm hesitated, worried about its reputation, but Camille stood firm. "This isn't just about me," she told them. "It's about setting a precedent." Reporters called, but she declined interviews. She wasn't doing this for publicity. She wanted real accountability. But at night, when things went quiet, she replayed the arrest in her head. The voices, the cuffs, the humiliation. It made her stomach twist, but it also strengthened her resolve. Marissa often stopped by, bringing food and reminding her to rest. "You know this is bigger than just a lawsuit, right?" she said one evening. Camille nodded. "That's exactly why I can't lose." She worked tirelessly, researching similar cases, preparing every argument. She also met with community groups, listening to others share their experiences. One day after a meeting, a stranger stopped her. "Miss Johnson," the woman said nervously, "thank you for standing up for all of us." Camille smiled softly. "I'm just doing what's right." The support gave her strength, but it also made her realize the pressure she carried. People were counting on her. Then one morning, her attorney called with unexpected news. "Camille," he said slowly, "you've been assigned as the judge for one of the officers' cases next month." For a moment, Camille said nothing. Fate had just flipped the script. When the day came, the courtroom buzzed with quiet whispers. The case involved two officers, Carter and Daniels, accused of excessive force in another incident. The room went still when Camille entered in her black robe. The officers' eyes widened. They recognized her immediately. She let the silence hang for a moment before speaking. "This court is now in session." The officers shifted in their seats. They whispered to their lawyer, clearly unsettled. Camille kept her expression calm. This wasn't about revenge. It was about justice, the real kind. The hearing began. The prosecutor presented strong evidence, detailing the officers' repeated misuse of power. The defense argued they had made a split-second decision. Camille listened carefully, taking notes. As the testimony unfolded, the similarities to her own arrest were impossible to ignore. The excuses, the dismissive tone, the lack of accountability. Still, she remained fair. When the victim, a young man named Ethan, took the stand, his voice shook as he described being thrown to the ground during a routine traffic stop. "They didn't even give me a chance to explain," he said. "They decided I was guilty before I opened my mouth." The defense tried to discredit him, but Ethan stood firm. Camille watched closely, her expression neutral, though inside she felt every word. When the officers testified, their confidence crumbled. "I thought the situation was escalating," Carter said weakly. "Looking back, Maybe I could have done things differently. His silence afterward said everything. When the hearing ended, Camille adjourned the court. We will reconvene tomorrow at 9 a.m. The next day, the courtroom was packed. Reporters lined the walls. Everyone knew this case meant more than two men on trial. It was a symbol. Camille delivered her decision calmly and clearly. Law enforcement exists to protect and serve with integrity and fairness. When that trust is broken, it harms the entire community. She ruled that both officers would be suspended without pay, required to complete retraining, and placed under official disciplinary review. Her gavel struck. This court is adjourned. As the officers stood, one of them hesitated. "Your Honor," Carter said quietly, "I'm sorry.